The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you a songwriter? Are you looking to turn your songwriting passion into a full-time gig? Whether you are just at the start of your songwriting journey or a seasoned industry professional, this show is made for you. Welcome to the Songwriter Show, bringing together songwriting news, interviews, and community. Now, welcome your host, Sarantos.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and I welcome you back wholeheartedly to the Songwriter Show. I'm your host, Sarantos. I'm a solo music artist who's been writing lyrics for as long as I can remember. Words are very important to me, and that's why I'm thrilled to host this show. I believe that every single song is a story. The Songwriter Show is broadcast live on #1 ranked W4CY Radio and has listeners in all 206 countries in the world and every state in the U.S. The station is also licensed with ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, Sound Exchange, and has partnerships throughout the music industry, including iHeartRadio and exposure to over 300 million listeners. Tonight's first guest is Chris Marra. Chris Marra is a singer-songwriter frontman for the band Leaf Jumpers. The band was formed in 1997 and has released 3 studio and 1 live album. The band hails from Connecticut and performs close to 100 shows a year throughout the Northeast. Chris also performs solo acoustic, playing songs he's written throughout his life. Welcome to the show, Chris. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome, man. So you have an interesting story. Tell me a little bit about this band of yours.
So Leaf Jumpers was formed back in 1996. And, of course, I was 12 when the band was formed because that's how old I am now. But in any case, I wish. So the band was formed in 1996, and for about 3 or 4 years, we did the whole touring the Northeast, touring up and down the East Coast. We put out 2 CDs, and then probably right after 2000, we just kind of felt like we plateaued, so we kind of took a break and came back about 13 years later and decided to start playing again. And one of the most important things to me was, I had a bunch of songs that I really felt were important to put down, and in the process of the band getting back together, began writing some more. So it just became an important thing for us to do another album. We actually did a Kickstarter campaign for that album, which ended up being pretty successful. And as a result, in 2016, we ended up putting out our last album, A Distant Land, which everybody says this because it's the thing to say. I think it's our best album, just because I think we had so much time between to pick our best material.
Sure. Now, do you put out stuff on your own too, or is it just through the band?
I have not put out anything on my own. I've thought about it, and it's something that I probably like to do. I do like the feel of playing with other people and getting other input. I never really feel like I can complete a song by myself at this point.
Sure.
Because the other guys in the band have things that they do that would just make songs better. And I think as a band person, you're kind of either always a band person or you're always a solo person, unless you're Phil Collins or Paul McCartney or anybody else who's done both, I guess, right? But there are people who can do both, and that's great. And I think if that was my whole career, was just doing music, it would probably be easier to do. But since it is not, sadly, my full career, it is something that's probably, at some point it'll happen. I just don't know when.
Yeah, and I think, one of the benefits when you look at the hit charts nowadays, there's like 10 songwriters on every song. So there's definitely a certain energy and a certain camaraderie, but there's also, everyone's got their own strengths. So when you're, writing with other band members, it makes it a lot easier, and they can point things out that you might not have even thought about.
Absolutely. And one of the things that our band does very well is, now that we're a little more mature, let's use that word, we're able to kind of take what we do and make it the best it can be without everybody in the band feeling like they need to play as much as possible. When you're young, and especially, when you're doing music that's a little bit more live oriented and comes out of live performance, you tend to try to fill as much space as you can in each song. And we've gotten better at kind of pulling that back a little bit and letting the songs kind of breathe a little bit so that it's not just constant, guitar strums the whole time, keyboards the whole time. It can be a little more sparse, and there can be a little bit more room for the listener to kind of enjoy the moments that are in there, as opposed to just it's constantly the same thing droning on. And I think that comes with time. I don't think we were good at that when we played 20 years ago. I think we're very good at it now, and that's actually a challenge when you're writing new music, is you want to try to make things sound a little more unique and a little different, as opposed to just any band could have written this, any band could have played this. I think that's an important thing that I'm still learning to get better at.
Yeah, and Chris, I think for the listeners, I think you just touched on gold. I had the same problem. I think when you get more experience, you learn to let things breathe, and you realize it doesn't just have to be like one continuous nonstop riff. And you got to have peaks and valleys, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, and coming from the age where we grew up, when I grew up to, basically MTV was basically the thing that kind of kicked me in to really want to be a musician and really want to follow music. I really had so many different genres. Growing up in Connecticut, we had it when it first came out on day one. And what you did when you got home from school is you just went right to your TV and turned on MTV and just watched for 3 hours. And no one got any homework done, and nobody went outside, and that was life. But because you had so many different things to pull from, it becomes really interesting to have a musical palette that is so diverse, as opposed to, growing up and listening to just classic rock or growing up listening to just pop radio. MTV was a radio station that had every genre. And I never, ever would have heard of half the bands I had heard of if it wasn't for that. And I think that has a lot to do with the musician you become, is because you get used to different types of music, you accept different types of music, and then you find appreciation even in things that you may not necessarily like. You can respect what people are doing and take from them the things that you think are interesting with your own music. Yeah,
that's true. And the parallel nowadays, I think kids do the same exact thing, except instead of MTV, they do YouTube.
Yeah,
and it's interesting. I know I'd much rather listen to music or play music than do homework too. So I understand it.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about. So you started young. Is your family musical? Any inspiration there?
Not really. It's very interesting. My father and my mother are both, they like music. They certainly enjoyed music. My grandfather was a little bit of a singer in an amateur way. He just had a great voice. And, whenever the Italian American Club was having a party, he was there singing, with whatever was going on. But there really wasn't much else, to pull me into it, except that my parents were encouraging. And they said, look, you can do this as much as you want to, as long as you go to school and have something to fall back on. But they were always, the only thing that, obviously would happen is, of course, every parent's nightmare is, you're playing the music too loud and, but besides the typical things, it wasn't like when I said I want to go and, play gigs on the side, they never said, no, you can't do that. Or, they were pretty respectful of what I was trying to do. Even when I, after college said, listen, I have a degree and I have this, but I want to try to make this happen. So I'm going to get a job in a restaurant or whatever and pursue music for a few years and, live in a kind of crappy apartment with my friends. And they never said no. They let me do it. And they made me kind of work my way through it. I don't think we ever suffered to the degree that a lot of people do. I have friends who've gone much further than me, who really paid their dues much more than I ever did. Or was willing to do perhaps, but they certainly, my folks never, forced me to do anything that I didn't want to do. And I think that's a good thing. I think when you have a support system, especially as a person who writes the songs and who wants to, put their music out there, it's important to have people who support you. My wife, I've been married to for 23 years, has also been just a big source of support as well.
Tell you what, Chris, I think that's good for you and congratulations, because I think a lot of people don't have that support. A lot of parents, think their kid's crazy and try to force them to go be a doctor or a lawyer or something they don't want to be. And even your spouse, I think that's wonderful that they support you. It's something I don't know what the numbers are, but I would venture at least half of the musicians out there, I think, don't have full support.
No, and I think that's the tricky thing for a lot of, people who want to be creative, is that, financially it is not the most stable business to get into, obviously. You have so many challenges that you would have with, anything else, perhaps more so because of the odds of you being successful and making a living out of it are much more difficult. But I think if you have the support system in play, even if you don't necessarily make a full-time career out of it, you could certainly still do things that will, make your life better, and you can share your music with people and really have a satisfaction of that and feel fulfilled.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the sadder things nowadays with, streaming, the royalties are always debated, but people make even less money now than they used to. So, it's tough.
Yeah. And I think there's a double-edged sword to technology. And the joke we always have in the band is it's too bad we didn't have social media back in 1998 when we were really riding high and playing so much and trying to do all these things that we wanted to do. We had flyers, and you went around to the colleges and you put them up on the dorms and everything else. Now you have so much access to getting the music out there. The trade-off is that it's less valuable because people can just stream it and listen to it once or twice instead of buying a CD or even downloading a song. And that's the catch. The catch 22 is you can certainly get your music out to more people, and that's great. People will hear your songs, but you will make much less money on it unless you're willing to go and do the grind and play as many shows as you can and build up a following and get people to come see you.
Yeah, it's true, Chris. So we have quite a few questions for you here from the fans and the listeners, but I'll just get to one of them right now. Was it hard for you to follow on with your music?
I think what happened when we kind of broke up is that everybody kind of, and this is the very typical, band story is you go and you build up to a point where you're pretty good locally and you have a good following and you just want it to keep growing, and then it starts to just kind of stabilize a little bit. And, that's where things like new material and promotion come in. And when that kind of bottomed out a little bit, I think I was a little bit dejected for sure. And I really didn't do much for a few years. And, in the interim, played in another band or two and had some fun with it. But it was nice to know that when we came back, people were really, excited to see us come back, and again, whether it's, whether you're a musician out there who has 10 fans or 100 fans or 1 million fans, if somebody likes you, that's a good thing and you should count your blessings. And we certainly do every day that people are even paying attention, because I think people take for granted that if somebody is even out there following you on Twitter or following you on Facebook, that's a good thing. And your goal should never be to just, go out there and make money. It should be to go out there and share your music, share your talents with the world, and do the best you can. And I think that's what drives me now, is it's not about making more money necessarily. It's about, getting my music out into every person that I can's hands and letting them listen to it and hope they like it.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about your songwriting, but we have a couple of questions here about from the fans. Where do you guys tour now? Where do you play currently? Any response to that for them?
So in about 2 weeks, we're probably going to put out our big summer schedule. And right now we're just doing, New England, Northeastern, United States. We've talked about doing more. We've talked about going out and maybe going down south or, going out Midwest or whatever. It is difficult to do when you don't do it full time. In fact, it's difficult to do when you do it full time. And, most bands that are really successful now do, weekend fly-ins where they'll go in and they'll hit, 2 or 3 cities on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They'll fly home. They'll go back out and they'll do Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we don't have that kind of a following. So we can't do that. So for us, it would be, jumping in a van and driving out to wherever we're going to play and hope we make a couple of bucks. We've certainly talked about doing that for a couple of weeks just for fun and to, get out there and have a good time with it. And yeah, if there was a demand for that, then we would certainly love to do it. But the alternative is we've talked about, and we've got to get better at this, is just putting more content online, more content to see us live on YouTube and more videos and things where people can kind of see us perform without having to necessarily get to us.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your songwriting process. Lyrics, music first, melody. Where do you prefer to start?
Well, I plagiarize everything, so that's a good start.
Okay.
No, so for me, there's really a couple of different ways it happens. the first way is that something will happen, whether it's something in my day or something I watch on the news or something that happens in a relationship, whether it's with my wife or my friends or whatever. And then the whole thing will kind of just come to me in a very vague way. And I'll have the song kind of playing in my head. And it's just a matter of if I can get to a pen and start writing lyrics right away that kind of make it work. And when that does happen, sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's horrible and I have to rework it. And then the second way it happens is that I will sit down and just kind of decide I want to start writing, and then it's lyrics first, and then sometimes in my head there'll be a melody to go along with those lyrics, and then I have to start working out what chords go below that. And then from that point, it's bringing it usually to the band and then having them rip it to shreds and basically tell me all the things that's wrong with it, which is fine. I mean, that's what they're good at, is, helping me turn my idea and my very big foundation for a song into something that is much better. And that usually, again, if you're writing everything on an acoustic guitar, which is 90% of what I do, like we talked about, anybody can go and just strum the whole time. And, there's guys who are really good at that, who are awesome. And then there's everybody else who needs to make it different. And for us, that means, the band telling me, let's just start with bass and drums on this, or let's just start with you and then bring the band in. And that's the kind of discussions we have. Somebody will come up with a line, for either keyboards or guitar, and it works out that way. But, there are times when just ideas for a chorus will pop into my head, and I'll grab my phone and voice record it with a whisper or something. And then, a month later, I'll look at it and go, what the heck is that? And go, oh, that's a good idea. So it really just depends. I'd like to say that there was one way that works better than the other, but I don't think there really is. It's just all kind of, whatever works.
Yeah, I think that's true. What do you think? There's something magical, or how do you get people to take you seriously as a musician? What do you think is the most effective way to do that?
I think the most important thing that we've learned through a lot of making this mistake, honestly, and something that I've really tried to do now when we play, is when we were trying to, if you could see me, you'd see the air quotes of me saying "make it" with air quotes. When we were back in the 90s and we put out our first CD, we knew we had some songs that people like. And I think what we did on the second CD for sure was try to make songs like that with the goal of making people like them. And with the album we just did 2 years ago, I wrote all these songs and I said, this is what we're going to do. This is how I want them to sound. And if people like them, great. And didn't really care where the style fit in, or whether people were going to think it was too slow or too fast or danceable, or whatever the case may be. I just kind of felt like this is what I wanted to do. And the guys who were playing with me were 100% behind me, and that worked out. And I think that's the biggest formula, is do what you feel is true to your heart and don't try to make it about people pleasing per se. And I think when you just try to make songs that you think people are going to like, you lose your way. When you make things that you think are what you really want to do and, kind of damn the consequences, then people kind of hear that in your songs and they kind of respect it. And, I think for me as a musician, I've learned that over the years, but when it was probably most important for me, didn't know it. And, that's a mistake that I think a lot of people make. And, I'm glad at least now I know, look, play what you want to play and don't worry about it.
Yeah, I couldn't even answer. I mean, I have gone back and forth many times. I agree with you that I think you just got to do what's in your heart, and you can't people please and try to put out what you think is popular. But I have given up trying to figure out which of my songs are the best, because I'll release something, I'll think it's the best thing I've ever done, it gets reviewed like crap. Then there's something else I'm like, oh, this is okay, and it gets reviewed like 99 percentile. So yeah. It's really tough to know what's going to resonate with people. And I think you're right. I think you got to do what fits, and it's got to be about your lifestyle. So, this month I released a song called Bankruptcy. It's something that was personal to me. I went through it, and I didn't know how it was going to be received. And again, how can you make a chorus Bankruptcy? How can you make that catchy? So I thought I did, and I thought it was cool. But I think you got to stay true to yourself. And it always reminds me of Sam Smith, when he said, before his two big hits, he was always trying to figure out what to do, and he just did what was personal for him, and he had 2 hit songs out of it.
Yeah, and I think that if you listen to some of the songs out there and think to yourself, how did somebody come up with, whatever this song is that's this unique hit, and you're like, there's no way they thought this was going to be a big hit when they wrote it, and yet here it is, this huge hit. It's funny because people just, I think they find things that are different about music, and those are the things they like. Things that sound repetitive and the same old are not really the things that I think people gravitate to, at least now. Maybe back in the day, but not now for sure. And even lyrically, the song you're going to play tonight, people always mistake it for what they think I'm saying, but I'm specifically saying something completely different because it's not about what they think it is. So it's interesting. I think that's nice. I think everybody should have their own interpretation of what songs mean to them. And I think that's the joy of doing something without caring what people are going to think in advance. Because anything, you throw out there can, mean something to somebody. My favorite Bruce Springsteen songs are all his least popular songs, because those are the ones that I like the most. And they just resonate with me. And I'm not even a huge Springsteen fan. So to find the songs that really resonate with me, that are kind of, the afterthoughts for, the mainstream is kind of a cool thing. And that's why I think people find all these different bands now, and they're like, they pull them in because that's something that means something to that person. And, whatever the crowd is looking for at that moment in time doesn't necessarily matter to them.
Yeah. Our second guest has not called in, so we're going to give you more time. So we're going to take a listen to your song. Tell us a little bit about your song.
The last thing you want to do is give me more time.
No, you're a cool dude, man. You're good.
I'm okay, I guess. So the song we're going to listen to is called Hard, and it is actually one of two songs on our last CD, A Distant Land, that are about my son. And my son, who is 10 now, was 6 or 7 when we were writing these songs, and he is autistic. He's on the spectrum. And a lot of, the lyrics in this song and a lot of the lyrics in the other song that I wrote about him are about, me understanding what he sees and his frustration with what he sees and how he can communicate. And he's verbal, and, we have conversations, and he actually loves music. And he's getting his father into 21 Pilots, which is great because I like them. And, it's sort of a thing where, it's a personal song for me, but I think without knowing that, you can still understand that, it's about trying to be, gutsy and trying to be able to say what you want to say and say what you mean to say and do what you want to do with conviction. People often mistake what we're saying for deep inside your heart, which is fine. It doesn't matter. And some people don't understand what it is that I'm actually saying. I actually had somebody who was trying to promote the album when it came out, questioning me about the lyrics. And she said, I don't understand. What do you mean by hard? And I'm like, well, when somebody's hard. And she's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, well, it's kind of a sports metaphor and maybe not. And I couldn't really explain it because to explain it would be to go into too much depth probably about what I did now. But I think that it really does for anybody listening to it kind of try to send a positive message that, you have certain choices, you have certain things that you can do. Not everybody does have all those choices. So, the goal for you is to make the most of what you can do and try to put out there, what you mean to say, what you want to do. And, for my son who can't articulate his needs all the time the way he wants to, and who has problems with, speaking in front of people or whatever, I think everybody has that to a degree. And with him, it's just a little more obvious. So that was kind of my, this is what I want for you, so to speak.
Okay,
I probably explained it longer than the song is. So I'm trying to fill your time for you.
That's all right, man. No, we're good. All right, we're going to listen to your song, Chris, and then we'll bring you back, and I'll ask you 100 more questions. So here we go.
Sounds great.
There's a road you'll turn and a road you'll take. There's a path you learn and a path you fake. Your thoughts outrun your words until you break. But there's one more way you can overcome. All the mess you've made can still be undone. Your tears and pain, you someday see the sun. There's another way to yet fate can set you right. Deep inside your heart, what are you waiting for now? Deep inside your heart, what are you waiting for now? Deep inside your heart. Well, I can't begin till I know the plan, and I can't make plans till I think I can. The end and the beginning, just grains of sand. Every choice has gains, but you know your prize. Can be pain or joy as the battle flies. You still alive when your spirit dies. Deep inside your heart, what are you waiting for now? Deep inside your heart, what are you waiting for now? Deep inside your heart. There's another way to see light, all alone deep in the darkest night. The choice is yours, yet fate will set you right. Deep inside your heart, what are you waiting for now? Deep inside your heart, what are you waiting for now? Deep inside your heart, what are you waiting for now? What are you waiting for now? Deep inside your heart, what are you waiting for now? What are you waiting for now? Deep inside your heart, what are you waiting for now? Deep inside your heart, what are you waiting for now? Deep inside your
And now, welcome this week's special guest.
So we're back with Chris after listening to that very fascinating song called Hard. Chris, that had a kind of an infectious groove to it. Some of the fans are asking, country? What would you classify that as, primary genre?
It's really funny you say country, because when we recorded the last album, a friend of mine actually came. I had given it to somebody before it came out, and I said, let me know what you think, because he's a real big music buff. And I said, so what did you think? He goes, I think you made a real nice country album. And I said, we did. And, he's not wrong that there are a lot of elements of country in there. There's definitely one or two pretty distinct country songs on there, but there are also a couple of progressive-y type songs and a couple of rock songs and like kind of a funk song. We were a jam band way back in the day, and we're kind of not a jam band now. But when you're in a jam band, you're kind of always in a jam band, which means that you're kind of open to any genre you want. And there are certainly elements of country in that song. I think it's a little bit more of like a Rusted Root influence than country necessarily, but there are certainly tones of country in there that, and I'm fine with that. I don't listen to a lot of country. The countryest music I listen to might be the Jayhawks, but yeah, and I love them, and they're all country, and there's nothing wrong with it. I like country a lot, and as you can tell, it's certainly there. But if it's there just because that's kind of how it comes out naturally, not because I was like, let's write a country song. It just doesn't. Yeah, that's kind of how things happen. It
is interesting, and some of the listeners have the same comments where you hear the name of it, we heard your explanation, then you hear the song, and a lot of them were like, that's not where their mind thought it was going to go. So it definitely has a little unique twist to it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I don't want to know where their minds thought it was going, but
yeah, that's right. Tell me a little bit about what was the thing you remember most about high school?
The thing I remember most about high school, God, sleeping in class, constantly sleeping in class. No, I did. I slept all the time because I would stay up and listen to music until 1 o'clock in the morning, and but that's something I remember most. I think I was not again what you call like a popular guy, and my freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, but I think senior year we had formed our high school band, so I kind of even though the high school band also wasn't popular, it kind of gave me a little bit of confidence, and I was kind of excited to do something creatively that other people were interested in doing. So it kind of gives you like a little bit of a shot in the arm, and I don't know. I mean, our high school was a different world. And, you're growing up in suburban Connecticut. It's certainly, different now than it is back then. But back then it was pretty normal. And I just kind of stayed out of everybody's way and, wrote my cheesy songs that, 5 people liked. And that was our thing,
Hey, man, if you had 5 people like your song in high school, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, there's always another band that's way more popular that has, no, it's great. But no, look, it was certainly okay. I think college was more a thing for me because, even though I didn't go very far away, there was just a lot more to have exposure to. I mean, I wrote for the newspaper, which I never did. And I, was on the radio station with a couple of friends who had a show. So it was just a little bit more, eye opening in terms of getting a lot of different, types of people thrown at you as opposed to just, this is your town. So that's always a good thing to kind of give you more inspiration and more influence.
Yeah. I'd like to ask all the guests on this show, tell us about a scam that you fell for, something you can warn us about, maybe since you're from the Northeast United States. Not a lot of people get to tour up there, or anything you want to warn us about, or something that happened to you?
God, the scams. The whole music business is a scam. Don't get in. Get out while you can, actually. The funny thing about it is that if you don't see them coming, then it's a little bit bad on you, but there's also people who can really make it seem like they're doing you a favor. There was this one thing that happened where, somebody heard one of our songs years ago and they were like, oh, we want to put you on a CD. It's going to be a compilation CD and it's going to be the greatest thing. And all you have to do is you're going to buy 30 CDs at $10 a piece and then sell them to your friends, but you'll be on this compilation. And you're doing the math and you're like, all right, so I'm going to spend, whatever it is, $300 so I can be in a compilation CD that somebody else's friends are going to buy from their band, and they're not going to listen to my song. They're going to listen to their band song. And it was really kind of a way of these people to make a lot of money to sell a CD that really they weren't even doing anything for. It was just not even their music, and it was very, very shady. There's that one. That's a good scam. The one thing I will say about, in terms of a scam, which is not really a scam, is just if you don't think you're going to be able to bring people to a show or get in front of a crowd because you're on a bill with somebody else, then, stay home until you can. We have a joke now that we never had back in the day, which is that everything sounds great when you're booking it, and then when you get there, you realize what a huge mistake it was. And that is, a mistake that I think a lot of bands, they'll get a promoter who will say, listen, I got a Monday night 8 o'clock slot for you in New York City. You got to come down and play the gig. And you get there and there's 6 people there, and all you did was waste, a whole day getting there, and, the gas and the time. And look, if you can get on a bill with, in front of 100 people, and even if you don't make money, by all means, you're in front of 100 people, that's fantastic. But, even bands that are trying to, do the whole road thing, be really careful about where you go and find venues that work, where the promoter is going to promote the gigs and not just throw you on a bill to fill space. And, that, again, something we've learned over the years. Back in the day, we would have driven anywhere for a 45-minute set just to show the guy that we were willing to do it. And most of the time, it never got us anywhere. Yeah. So I think a lot of bands learn that the hard way. And that's the kind of thing that breaks up a band or, puts a lot of stress on a band, is that, you go on the road to try to, play these gigs thinking it's going to be this glamorous thing, and it ends up being a nightmare in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's definitely a myth into the music business and a reality and a perception that sometimes don't coincide with one another.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can definitely be tough. And, the thing is you can, for us, we're very lucky. We're right near Boston, we're right near New York. It's easy to get to those places logistically, but they are very big cities. There's a million bands that want to play there. And unless you're going to go in and bring people or have friends there who can bring people, it's a hard nut to crack. And, you may just be better off building outwards and then trying to get there as opposed to just saying, like we were from the Hartford area. Hey, let's just shoot right down to New York. I mean, we couldn't draw 5 people in Fairfield County, Connecticut. Why are we trying to go to New York City where we won't draw 5 people? So it's tricky.
Yeah. So I have a really important question for you. What are you most looking forward to seeing? The new Avengers movie or the new Star Wars movie?
So I saw the trailer for the new Star Wars movie yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I'm much more excited about that. I'm going to win fans over this. I'm not a huge Avengers fan. I don't even know if I've seen the last couple. So yeah, it's not good.
Well, I'm sorry, Chris. We just lost you.
Yeah, you're out. So the rule of thumb is that my wife is not a big Avengers fan, therefore I don't get to watch those movies. And I actually had just said over the weekend to somebody that I really wanted to see a couple of them that I hadn't seen, and but I grew up a Star Wars fan. Certainly want to see the whole story end, and the trailer looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So
I'm a nut for all those. I love all those Star Wars, Marvel, Disney. I'm into all that kind of stuff. DC even. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. I don't. I wish I had. When you have a kid, it's hard to have as much time to do the movies.
Sure.
And he's not into any of that. He watches all the Pixar movies. That's it.
Yeah.
So anything.
Those are
Pixar,
great movies.
Yeah. So
Those
Toy
are
Story
great movies. Yeah.
Yes, and I've seen the Toy Story 4 trailer more times than the actual movie will be long.
Yeah.
Because he loves Toy Story. He's all about Toy Story 4. So this is going to be a big, big, big deal. So hopefully when that comes out, I'll get to see that on the opening day, which will be nice.
So you're definitely going to sign up for the new Disney streaming thing, right? I heard it was like $6 a month. So
it's a possibility.
Yeah. Although, how can you not, right? They have so much content, but
they do. But when you have, when you have every DVD on your shelf downstairs, for those of you who don't know what DVDs are, they're these small discs that are about 5 inches wide circumference, and you put them in a player. Yeah, when you have all those already, I don't know that we don't have one of those movies. So I don't know that the streaming service would be useful.
Chris, why don't you explain to the listeners what a VHS is too?
Oh my God, that's an ancient device. Yeah, remember? I don't know if a person would have the patience to fast forward or rewind right now. That's painful.
You know what's crazy though? Vinyl has made a huge comeback, right? Now here cassettes are coming back too, like mixtapes and cassettes, like we used to do back in the '80s. But that's becoming a thing now too.
And it should, because it's funny, we have this debate, which is better to just stream like a Pandora or whatever your choice is, Spotify, or to create your own mix. And I need to have control of what I'm playing and listening to, so I can't just leave it up to random. And when I do sacrifice that, it's usually because I'm just listening to a station on Sirius or whatever. But yeah, I just got the free Amazon Music for a month, and I decided to, but I always pick what I'm listening to. I can't leave it up to them to choose for me. Maybe that's just my thing, but I do occasionally stumble on new music, which is good, because otherwise I wouldn't learn anything new.
Yeah. Chris, tell our listeners, a few of them have asked, but where can they find out more information about you and the band, and where can they purchase your music?
So we have a pretty decent website as far as websites go. It's leafjumpers.com, and you can actually stream everything right there. You can buy everything right there. So you can get all of our music, right to our own website, easy as pie. You can, of course, go to iTunes, and you can stream on Spotify. I think everything is up on YouTube. There are some live videos up on YouTube as well. And, I think it's on Amazon. Whatever there is out there, I'm pretty sure it's out there. But I know everybody's, primaries are, Spotify. I don't think we're on Pandora, but Spotify, iTunes, Amazon. I think Google. Is there Google? I'm not sure. I know I sound old now, don't I? What's that Google thing? Yeah. But yeah, so all that. But our website is actually the place where you can get it direct, which actually is a little bit better for us. And, the good thing about that too is we can kind of see the traffic. So if, 500 people from St. Louis all of a sudden go and stream one of our songs, it's like, well, maybe people in St. Louis like us. We'll go get some ribs and we'll play a couple of shows. It'll be great.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. Or we'll go to Chicago. There we go, right? We'll come to Chicago, have some deep dish and play, what's the place? What's the legendary club in Chicago? Is it's still
there's a bunch of them.
Something that begins with SH, I think.
SH.
I could be completely wrong. I could be thinking of something else.
SH.
I don't know.
I don't know with SH, but
maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, we have another minute here, but tell me a little bit about what's your biggest regret in life? Something you wish you could do over or you regret that you've done?
Besides not buying Apple at 10 about 13 years ago, because that would have been a smart move. I thought about it too. I think going back to when we talk about what you want to do with your music and what you want to do with your, how you want to pursue it. And this is just a good piece of advice for any young songwriter out there who's listening. You want to keep, we had a gap, or I had a gap really from, 2000, 2001 to 2013 where I just didn't really do much musically. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think if I had just kept playing and just kept putting out music that it would have been a little more consistent. And now I would have, a little bit more, whatever it would be, whether more people would know about the band or know about me and whatever. So I think you never want to, even if you feel like things are not working out for you, you just got to keep plugging along and doing it. And like I said earlier, I think one of the things I felt is like we started to pander a little bit to the audience. And once you start to compromise what you're doing for the sake of trying to please people, I think you lose your way. And I am happier now putting out the music that I really like doing and experimenting with different things and, again, mixing up the genres a little bit. I'd rather do that and have people like it than, kind of hope that people like what I'm doing because I'm really trying to get them to like it. I think if you're a musician who's a young person trying to think about making it in the music scene, be yourself, stay true to yourself, and, keep it going as long as you can.
Yeah. All right, brother. I think that's great advice. And I want to thank you for being on the show. And I hope you have a great night. And thanks for being with us tonight.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And next time I'll do like 2 hours, whatever you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll do it all.
All right, Chris.
All right, Toronto, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, bye.
So now we're going to hear a song called Are You Sure You Can Last? This is a song that basically is a workout type song, probably inspired by Rocky and some of those movies that I love. So I hope you enjoy it, and then come back and say goodnight right after that.
Is upon us. Are you ready for the climb that lies ahead? Does the passion burn in your heart? Is your mind starting to understand this challenge that's thrown upon us? We need to struggle to learn to survive. Only once in a lifetime you feel it. This must be our time to thrive. Do you know how long you can take it? Are you willing to take a chance? Do you know if you really believe it? Are you sure you can last? Night settles down upon us, the moon shining bright tonight. You look up to heaven for guidance and ask yourself if the time is right. Can you
1 second that you've made it. Are you sure you can play the game? You answer your critics with a question. You're not sure you'll ever be the same. Do you know how long you can take it? Are you willing to take the chance? Do you know if you really believe it? Are you sure you can last? Drum. Do you know why your heart makes that sound? Is there a doubt still in your mind? Are you ready to take the crown? Are you ready to take the crown? Are you ready to take the crown? Do you know how long you can take it? Are you willing to take the chance? Do you know if you really believe it? Are you sure you can last? Are you ready for all the glory? Are you willing to risk it all? Are you sure you can take it? Do you wanna make it? Are you ready to stand tall? It's a long way down if you
I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed Chris. It was a wonderful interview, great tune, and I hope you guys really learned a lot and enjoyed the show. To anyone out there who may be an artist who's listening, if you want to be on the Songwriter Show, feel free to visit the website and just shoot me an email. I hope your own unique story gets heard around the world. My name is Sarantos. Please join me every Tuesday night to hear other amazing artists share their fascinating behind-the-scenes stories right here at the Songwriter Show. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you for listening to The Songwriter Show. To keep the momentum going, head over to www.songwritershow.com and join our free music community of artists, songwriters, and producers. That's www.songwritershow.com.